Okay, so if you're still following along with this series, this is page 6 in part 2. Um, the last one I left off on, if I end up if it ends up getting posted, which I probably will, was the last page of the first part, 24, where the big twist is that we, the audience, find out that instead of making Jackson smaller, it turns out he's an inch bigger than he was before. Now he's taller than his dad. So we come into part 2 where he has a bit of fun with that for a couple of pages. And he has a bit of fun, after which, like, Aiden is feeling left out, is feeling bad because it seems like everybody is taller than their dad now, and he's still a little kid. So he feels, oh, oops, let's give her some shoes. How the heck does that happen? Um, so the idea is he went whining to Allison, and she gave him this cryptic message that Jackson was going to be cut down to size. And then it comes over here into the school where the story shifts to Jackson. In part 1, the story was generally focused on Allison. So now we're shifting the story to Jackson because he's the one that's going to be the main focus of the size change in this story. So here we are in school where we're going to meet his friends. We've seen Sean. I want to say David's Nightmare was the first time we've seen Sean for just a little bit. These, and now we're introducing a new friend, Connor, is this kid here, and then this girl here is going to be the replacement for Morgan. Basically, the replacement for Morgan. She's going to be the new romantic interest, so to speak. And we're calling her Ashley. And we're going to rotate her 90 degrees. Actually, probably a little bit more because I want her to come this way. And like I was saying, this part of the book is just sort of setting up him in the school, um, meeting his friends and that sort of thing. The school set, we went way back to Simon's Lament, I think was the last time we saw this. Kind of preparing for this story, I sort of made some quick updates, cleared out all the extras, and then sort of took all the extras that are floating around in the background, aged everybody appropriately. I think like about a year and a half, I think, has passed. That one, how about that one? And we've repopulated them back into the set to make the background realistic and interesting and that sort of thing. But like the one thing I've been learning from doing Simon's Lament, and I think the same thing came up with, say, transforming Tyler, when we'd see Gabriel in the classroom with about 10 to 15 other students, that had no real part but to fill seats. The idea is like all these characters end up slowing down the set, and they become slightly annoying, having to make minor changes and move each and every one about for a scene that they may or may not be seen in. So what I'm doing here is just kind of populating them as needed, and I'm really trying to sort of cheat. So I have the characters against the wall so that I can get as many of these images where it's just them against the lockers with no background, so that I can kind of get away without doing this, spending the time. But like every time I tell myself I'm going to kind of cheat my way out of something, then I decide I'm going to go do it anyway. I just have to have these angles that feature people that have no real role in the story. And because a lot of these characters you might recognize from previous stories because we're using them as extras, even though they're not going to have roles. So here's Morgan, not Morgan. What the heck was her name? Madison, Alex's girlfriend in the very first story. Um, is going to be an extra. She popped up again in Simon's Lament. This is his friend Bo. They play sports together. I think I've avoided saying what sport they actually play. I think I don't know if you've noticed, like in the previous stories, whenever he talks about the team, he always mentions it in generic terms because I wanted to just never wanted to settle on what sport exactly they were playing, even though we're a little more specific when it comes to what Jackson does. Let's see. How about red? Okay, there we go. Let's see if we've got somebody else. So I've got all these extra characters loaded into the set, but they're hiding off behind the walls. And here's somebody. Excuse me. Yeah, we've just got to find them in order to repopulate them. Let's see. Again, I'm not really sure how many scenes over the course of the story I'm actually going to do in the school. Um, so this set is kind of in pieces. I've got two separate rooms sort of set up, and then the hallway, and that's about it with this. So whatever I decide to do, I'm going to just make excuses to have it take place in either one of the two classrooms or out here in the hallway. And for some reason, I never favorited certain um, translations with her. So we've got to come through and favorite all my favorite properties before we get annoyed with this. Yeah, if you're following along, this story is becoming, it's kind of, these videos are sort of like showcasing what I was meant about kind of picking up ideas as I was working. where it's like talking with you guys has given me a couple of minor ideas. Whereas I think, in a previous video, I was talking about how Aiden sort of is beginning to feel left out, left behind, that sort of thing, because everybody seems to be growing up and he's still a kid. He's got a few years of being a kid. So I ended up kind of, it was one of those things where it ended up getting squeezed in a couple of pages ago. Not that I haven't really been playing up on that theme, but I think to have it like actually directly referenced is sort of something I didn't expect to do. And I think the premise here is that they're not quite friends yet. She's going to be approaching him to kind of flirt, to get to know him, that sort of thing. So we're going to have her get all touchy. We're going to have her kind of touching him, getting touchy with a boy she's not too familiar with. Because remember, in the previous in previous videos, I think I was, I think in some of the previous videos, I was running into this joke, or showcases joke that he's the teenage heartthrob. I, I don't know why why I don't know why that sticks, but it's just so funny. It was just so funny to me that I have to keep using that. I have to run the joke into the ground. Which way is the thumb going? Yeah, see, now I'm starting to get lag because of all the characters in, but I think I can live with it. There we go. Side to side. I think let's close the mouth a little bit. Oh, when I put her, whoever she is, into the scene, and now I don't see her. So let's move her. If I put her there, she's gonna block Madison. Well, I can. That's good. We don't really need to see her, but if she's gonna be there, then we should at least sort of see her. And then we're gonna spin Connor around. She's not even close to touching him. Oh my god. See, I think I mentioned that too, that the angle always hides what's really going on. So I thought that was going to be fine, but apparently it's not. Let's see. Oh, actually, I know what's slowing her down. It's not all the characters. Um, I'm afraid. The idea is her clothes have a smoothing modifier attached because they don't fit to the model perfectly, so the smoothing modifier kind of corrects that. So if let's see, I'll show you what I mean, but so sure, if we find, here's enable smoothing on, if we turn it off, okay, I guess it's not going to matter, so we'll just turn it off. See, and I went all the trouble of moving her, and now I've got a new angle where you can't see her. Let's see, 45, and we'll render. And then we'll come here and grab a bubble and edit and paste that after we had just Control C'd it. Transform, flip vertically, and now she's going to say something kind of flirty. You're kind of cute. You're kind of cute, big guy. She's going to be a little forward. I don't want to make her slutty or anything like that, but we're just going to have her. So I think we're going to play this where she's going to be just a little forward because it's going to throw him off. Edit, cut. Select none, edit, paste as new layer. And let's up, merge that down, and we will trim the box down. Oops, I don't see the pictures. Ready? Just finish this up. Plus two calling big guy feeds into the theme of what's going on. And I think too, I don't think we've seen Jackson really flirting before. We've always played it up in the past that his relationship with Morgan was always some cute middle school preteen crush. So now that he's in high school, now we kind of get to see him a little bit more serious. And two, we gotta make sure these interactions are age appropriate. Okay, so now we'll go adding our new layer to give this the 1 pixel border size. Fuzzy select that. Come over here to go cut, and then edit, paste as that invisible. Select invert, select shrink, select invert, edit, cut, select none, and I will merge that down. I should have a, now that I think about it, now that I'm like thinking this through, kind of why I've gone silent a little bit. Sort of thinking this through, I think I'll have him completely stuttering through this. Um, you know, I'm gonna, let's just delete the key. Okay, delete the key on the thumb. Um, oops. Kind of try and make it look like he's turning around. Oops. Means his eyes have to be looking. Let's see. Find an angle I'm happy with. Okay, so let's turn her around too. We'll just sort of, whoops. We'll just sort of pretend she circled around him. Which means if I'm going to end up with a half shot, then all these characters I place back here are now going to have to be kind of moving. And over here, here's Simon. He keeps popping up. We're using him as a background character today. Sort of add a bit of continuity of sorts. Oops, I've got his arm and not his shoulder. And then we'll move his friends so that they're kind of in the shot. Zoom in a little bit. is how wide of a picture do I need? Okay, this one's going to be a narrow picture, so I'll zoom in too much. And, instead of looking at the camera, he's got to look at somebody. Let's go small. I think Sean's going to Sean will make Sean more wide-eyed. You'd think he'd never seen a girl before. Oh boy. Let's see, right? I don't know. He shouldn't be looking at Jackson's reaction. I feel like they should both be looking at her. And his eyes doing something. The eyes aren't going to look right. For some reason, the eyes on his character won't look right in the viewport, but they'll look right when it renders. And let's see. Okay, let's render this and give it. Now that I spent so long on that, I've got to remember. Oh shoot, cancel. Um, got to remind myself what she said to lead into this. Oops. I need. Oops. You're not so hot yourself. I mean, you're kind of hot. You're cute too. He's sort of blur. The idea is it blurts out his first reaction like you're hot. He's thinking you're hot, and then it's like, whoa, dial it down a little bit. Don't want to be too forward. I mean, you're cute too. Okay. Whoops, I gotta make that bold. Bold. Did I make hers bold too? Okay, yes, that one's already bold. The idea, even though he was quote unquote dating Morgan throughout middle school, the idea, oh shoot, edit, undo, control C. I forgot to control C that. Okay. Oh, what the heck? Undo. Oh, I see. I'm on the wrong. Stupid me. Talking to you guys, not even paying attention. Select none, edit, paste as. The idea is he's not too experienced with girls yet. Merge down. Paste as. merge that down, and now let's find our picture. See, it doesn't even matter if this part of the picture is empty, if there's no background, because this is going to get cut very narrowly, and you won't even see that on the page. So we will open that picture and scale it to 34%, and we're going to bring it up here. Make sure they're kind of centered in the box, and then we will trim that. And you see how we lose all of this. It cuts. And if you're wondering why I make these pictures so much bigger than I need to, why I sort of do a 16:9 ratio if I'm not using it, it's pretty much because it gives me the freedom to trim off whatever I need. If I end up using more of the picture than I thought, then I have room, then I've got sort of room to keep. So like in this picture, I could have trimmed it about here, but because I wanted to go to this line, I sort of widened it out. Plus it gives you a sense that there's something going on in the background. But if it ended up where I needed to trim it down a little bit more, I've got the room to trim in the picture. Whereas if I had made the picture this size and it turns out I need it to be a little bigger, then oops, I don't have that room to cut. Plus the other thing, um, later to image size that, if you're following me on Twitter, which for the most part all I'm using Twitter for is to spam these books, is basically spamming Twitter to advertise the books. Um, I sort of use these I'll pick out a bunch of images that look interesting to use them as the advertising cards. So here I am talking to you and I'm like not paying attention here, but so like the extra space in the picture will give me a place to put the title and author name. Invert, select, shrink, okay, select, invert, edit, cut, select on, and okay. And we're gonna have to, we're just gonna have to manipulate this. This is the flip. I'm gonna put it on horizontal, and okay, and then I will hit the anchor. And there, now it's pointed at him instead of some weird point in space. Cute big guy. But you're not so hot yourself. I mean, you're kind of hot. I mean, you're cute too. I think we've got characters. Okay, we're gonna move him out of the way. Okay, no, it's not the smoothing modifier on her. It's slowing her down. It is all these characters. Oh well, we'll live. Let's pull her away from the lockers a little. And then the thing is, like with these background characters, sometimes you create somebody so interesting that I end up like telling myself someday I want to use her. I want to make her a character in some story and hope you don't notice that she was used as a background character in another universe. Um, I can change the image name now, but I gotta change her expression. We will Control C that, and we will paste. Edit, edit, not file. Oops, I need this guy. Thanks. Out after school sometime. And let's see. Yeah, that might be the best. Open as layers. We will bring this picture in layer scale. Oops, not 34, 33. Bring her, because this is going to be the narrow of the two. Okay, that'll work. Edit and cut. None. There. I think. Yeah, I think it's a line is gonna work. Edit. Paste as new layer. Select none. And now we will trim the bottom of that. Edit. Cut. None. Edit. Paste as new layer. I can't stop. I don't know why I keep coming back to that teenage heartthrob thing. Oh my god. I latch on these ideas and I just wear them into the ground. And it's like just the fact that they get worn to the ground makes them funny. I think I've done that, and I can't remember the specific gags, but there's been a couple of books where I just run the gag a lot longer than I normally should, and it just becomes funny because it just won't stop coming up. Or at least funny to me, I should say. So I think in this book, it's the teenage heartthrob thing that keeps coming up. Actually, yeah, now that I think about it, I can remember another example. If you go back to the babysitter, that apple that just keeps popping up, like to me, was a lot funnier than it should have been. Invert. So like, oh joy, oh look, you saved the apple. Invert, edit, cut. And now that I'm like talking and not paying attention, let's see if I did this right. Okay, yep, I've got my border. Merge down. Oh, okay, so I'm gonna have to put the smoothing modifier back in the shirt if I want to do the shot of her walking away. And of course, somebody's got to mention her name because to you, the reader, you don't know who this is yet. I've told you it. I've told you guys watching that her name is Ashley. Whoops. You can see it in the menu, but as far as the story goes, so far her name hasn't popped up on the page. So I've got to make sure that that before we go away from this scene, that somebody tells Jackson who she is. Let's see. Let's twist him back a little bit. There's just something wrong about that smile. And now Sean, who looks like he's never seen a girl before. And then this guy, oddly enough, he's got a name. I think he was previously created as sort of another teammate of Alex's we hadn't seen before, but he wasn't used. And I'm trying to remember which story that was for. Because the idea is where we're advancing time. You sort of imagine that there's going to be new kids on the team in the new year that weren't there last year. At least that's the thinking. So it's created so that I end up creating like a couple of new characters each quote unquote year to throw in if we ever need the team members. And then they may or may not get seen. Actually, I was going to leave this a silent panel, but I think he's going to say something as if he didn't get a chance to say it, or he was too shy to say it when she was there. Uh, yeah, maybe. Um, oh, it's sort of where you end up seeing it more. Is there were a couple of pictures in Alex's room that were just like quick quote unquote team pictures. God, he is goofy looking. That's funny. Oh, So the idea is some of the pictures in Alex's room are sort of just put together with people from the team. Oops, people from the team. So one or two of the new characters, the I should say quote unquote new characters, appear in the pictures, but not in any of the stories. But not any of the stories. And what's worse is because the pictures are so small to begin with, and then they get even smaller when these images get scaled down. You'll like never be able to pick them out. It's sort of like the image I was creating to put on the camera when I wanted to make it look like she was actually shooting what was going on in the scene that I was talking about in another video, in a previous one of these videos. Okay, Mr. Goofy is going to get cut out of this shot. Sorry. You're not making it today, pal. This picture isn't lined up. It's got to be moved up 1 pixel or whatever. And it looks lined up. Okay. Layer to image size. Cut, edit, paste as new layer. Turn that off for a moment. Invert, select, shrink. And oh my god. So this was something I was really um, conscious of early on in the series, was sort of the placement of the word bubbles when it came to the kids. Because the idea is that in the first story, there was the sexual aspect, and because in there is sort of the fetish surrounding this sort of the size change. The flip side is I really am it's sort of uncomfortable about turning the kids themselves into sex objects. So I think if you go through the first story, I want to say the first story, which is now only on Patreon and DeviantArt. I think that there's a lot of instances where the word bubbles get placed in certain spots to maybe like hide, maybe like to maybe like cover breasts or butts or whatever. Or in this case, what I try to avoid is that it's pointing to his crotch. That's the kind of thing I want to avoid, but I really don't. I'm really not sure how to keep it from pointing at his crotch. Then you go to the muscle growth verse, where I'm dealing with older characters, where like that kind of subtle joke is more appropriate. And you do run into instances where word bubbles could be pointed at their crotches. Oops. But it's like in this case, well, I do like to have fun with seeing the kids go through the. I really don't want to be doing that sort of. I really don't want to be crossing that line and sort of like making phallic jokes with Jackson, even though it is kind of funny, but um, cut. So we're gonna redo this bubble and move it. Paste as new layer. So it's if you sit at home reading my stories, like it might just seem like I'm putting together a fun story, but there's a lot of thought that goes into this. There's a lot of thought that goes into placement, even if it doesn't quite seem it. Watching me do this, it's I do it's like in the Shrimp of the House universe, like I do like the realism that like we're not going to hide the fact that like Alex is a teenager having sex with other teenage girls, but we sort of try and downplay. You want like the balance between the truth and not exactly sexualizing underage sex, that sort of thing. It's a weird balance I'm trying to walk with this series, is what I'm getting at, I guess. Um, okay, she's going to be out of the scene, so we'll just move her out of the way. Which is it doesn't matter where she goes because I think these are going to be two panels. These are going to be two panels where the lockers end up being the backdrop. Excuse me. Oh, I always seem to eat like within an hour or so of like turning the camera on, and then burping as end up with like having to burp as the meal kind of works its way through, and like in the middle of these stupid videos. So that's why you're always hearing me going excusing, just in case you're hearing the burps on camera or on the microphone. I'm just trying to be very polite. And now he's gonna be looking very confused. Not very confused, but 49 layer. Transform, rotate. Where's she? I feel like he should be saying something a little more than who was she? Okay, so it's just like I feel like I should know her. Select none. Come on. Edit cut that. Edit cut that. And then edit paste that. Oops. Okay, paste as the new layer, and then we will. Okay, now let's grab this picture. Save. Open as layers. 34. This one. Oops. Guide. Actually, okay. Cut. Aimer edit. Cut. See, here's where I'm trying to think of something interesting to say, and I'm again not focusing on what I'm doing, and I'm failing. Okay, so this has to be corrected a bit. Hmm. Actually, no, I know what we do. You know what? I'll just flip this one horizontally and move it over there. See, so nobody's gonna think it weird that the word bubble is pointing to his stomach or his chest or anything like that. But if any of you are like me, then you'd notice that it was pointing to his crotch when we were trying. Oh my god, when we were trying to place it in the previous panel. And now here's another informational dump panel where we're gonna get our name. How much can I spin this without having to bring in people. Okay, so and then we got to bring the head up. Since starting this 2 or 3 years, since I started doing this 2 or 3 years ago, you really start paying attention on when you're watching TV a little bit more to how they film shots. Because at the end of the day, the TV is a 16:9 aspect as well. And you kind of start noticing that they get these weird, the camera focuses on these weird, or the camera frames the shot in weird ways that you'd never really have thought about if you weren't looking. Where you'll get a shot, so it's, I don't know how many times over the course of the series you'll notice that I frame the shot so that like the top of their head is above the picture, and it gives me the more room. You end up seeing a lot of times on TV where it's like the top of the head isn't important, it's the face. And then like sometimes you'll see shots where it's just like framed weird, where maybe like the focal point of the scene is like in a corner of this scene instead of the center. Um, Let me finish this before I forget what I'm doing. I feel like I should know her because she's in your homeroom. No, it should be our homeroom. Idiot. It's because she's in our homeroom, idiot. That's Ashley, and I wasn't gonna give her a last name, so I don't know. For some reason, Summers comes into my head, so we'll call her Summers. Because she's in our homeroom, idiot. That's Ashley Summers. Which actually works because if his name is Smith and they put him in by if they're if people are assigned alphabetically, then Smith and Summers would be in the same homeroom. Okay, so Summers works for me. We'll call her Ashley Summers. But sort of like weird shots on TV. I get to like maybe I'm kind of dating myself as getting old here, but like I kind of find myself like just watching these old westerns on TV that like pop up on the secondary broadcast networks just because like the storytelling is simple. The episodic nature means I don't have to sit and worry about missing episodes to get the story. It's like you really don't have to think to watch these. You can just let it run and kind of half focus on it and on them, that sort of thing. And they are like, because they're old and dated, there is like an aspect to which they're silly as well. You kind of laugh at how like the sort of the attitudes at the time. It just kind of it just ends up being funny. Like some of the stuff that made it that they thought was okay back then, it would like never fly today. In like the category of weird shots, there's like one I keep watching. One that I just like I end up keep watching is called Laramie, and there was one episode that opens where some guy is walking out of saloon carrying a lantern at night, and the camera is focused on the lantern. And because because he's got it in his hands, hanging at his side, it's basically a crotch shot. It's like the camera is supposed to be focused on the lantern, but it's like this subtle focus on the guy's crotch as he's just walking down the to where he like sets the lantern down before it finally like pans off. But it's just like this very weird camera angle. It's focused on his crotch. And you know, it's but then again, that kind of thing is never accidental on TV. There was a way back when like the Fox network was kind of finding its footing back in the 90s, and you had shows like In Living Color on. They ran a sketch comedy show that was very short lived called The Edge, and they did a sweep sweep theme episode where they had like these two old prudish characters were sitting at their were sitting in their living room watching TV, and they would keep coming on after a sketch and like commenting on how many crotch shots and booby shots were in the previous sketch. Like, there were 13 crotch shots and booby shots in that last scene. And it was supposed to, and they were supposed to be like outraged over it, but they were clearly watching for the crotch shots and the booby shots. And it's just the kind of thing that sort of highlights that Hollywood doesn't do this accidentally. It's entirely intentional. And then like another, or also if you're a fan of the What did I just do? Like if you're a fan of the Stargate franchise, um, you kind of remember if you kind of think to Stargate Atlantis. Um, they had the pair of episodes where Rodney McKay would go see Katie Brown, the botanist, and she would have the phallic cactus in the room, and the actor playing Rodney would grab the cactus and just start doing all these would just start like hold it right at his crotch and like intentionally make it look like and intentionally like make the phallic imagery worse. And if you watch the episodes with the commentary, it's very clear that like the whole thing is intentional. That they're playing it up as much as they can. So it's like you might see critics sometimes complaining about phallic imagery in certain shows, and have just kind of like realized that it's never accidental. If you ever see phallic imagery, it's always intentional. And I have no idea where that I have no idea how like how I got into that conversation, but there it is. And it's maybe why it's maybe too why I'm always conscious about like how do you portray how things get portrayed unintentionally in the images, like why I'm careful about whether or not I want word bubbles pointed at people's crotches. I think that's it. Let's see. And I have to save this as, oh shoot, no, fingers there. We will change this to 6. And then image, flatten, file, export. Oh, I didn't need to do export as, but I'll just hit enter and export it. And then we will dump pictures into the book 2 folder and grab page 6 and give it a once over. You're kind of cute, big guy. You're not so hot yourself. I mean, you're kind of hot. I mean, you're cute too. Thanks. Maybe if you want, we could hang out after school sometime. Uh, yeah, maybe. Who was she? I feel like I should know her. Guess she's in our homeroom, idiot. That's Ashley Summers. And that was page 6. And I'm sure you got more information than you wanted to out of that one. But we'll open a fresh guide and discard the changes on that one. But I sort of hope you were entertained. And I don't know if I'm going to do page 7, given where my mind is gone during this video. But thank you for tuning in.